Hello, welcome to Sephra's World. My name is Sephra. This is my world. Day 37 in isolation station. Woohoo! Have I gone crazy yet? So today's 420. Happy 420! Smoke 'em if you got 'em. See, I'm wearing my 420 t-shirt. Well, actually, it's my Global Marijuana March t-shirt I bought many years ago. So what's 420? What's that all about here in Toronto? Well, we don't really have 420 anymore because we don't need it. 420, stands for the bill of making marijuana legal, right? And for the last, oh, I don't even know, because I was doing it for about 10 years, and I know it started before that, not much before, maybe about 15 years ago. A couple people decided to start protesting that marijuana wasn't legal yet. Here in Toronto. And so a couple of guys just went to an area that we call Dundas Square, which is like New York's Times Square, but here in Toronto it's much smaller, of course. But, we still have all the billboards and it's been built up. Back then it wasn't as built up as it is now, of course. So they went and like had a rebellion, or just a couple of them were smoking weed in the square. Then over the years, this caught on, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started going about 10 years ago because I heard about this thing. And I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. I was on my way to it because it got so big in Dundas Square that it became an all-day event. So it would be like from something like 11 to 6, and thousands of people would come out, like thousands, and they'd have comedians all day and some bands and protests. Rallies and people talking and stuff. And it just became this huge festival. And it got so big it would leak over to the Eaton Center, and all these cops had to come out. Then when the clock hit 420, everyone would light up a joint, and then they always played that "O Canada" song. I think it's Drake or someone who sings it. And then you take pictures of all the smoke going in the air at 420 and all that, and yeah, so it was basically a rally to get pot legalized. And ultimately, there would be vendors selling everything from herb to joints to edibles to drinks to snacks to jewelry to t-shirts. That's what I got this t-shirt, although this was Global Marijuana March t-shirt. And yeah, it became really huge. And then one time I was, a couple years ago, like I was starting to say, I was on my way to the rally at Dundas Square, and when I went into the subway system, weed was illegal. And then when I came out of the subway system, that's when they announced that weed would be made legal. So it was a very different 420 celebration that day. We were all really happy. And yeah, so you have thousands of people smoking weed in the square, but no one on 420, no one ever got arrested. I think probably people would get arrested if they were doing stupid shit like driving around or whatever, but for the most part, people were just peacefully, like a bunch of stoners watching comedy shows all day, or the band or whatever's happening in the protests. They give out free seeds and all that. So then, and then there'd be the Global Marijuana March, which would be in May, and that would assemble at Queen's Park, and I did that one for about 10 years as well. Would assemble in Queen's Park, and it got really huge. I mean, there's floats and everything. The news crews, they block off Bloor Street and Yonge Street, and would walk along and go down and around, and then end up back at Queen's Park. And at Queen's Park, over the years, people would put up their little vendor booths and sell weed and edibles and all that stuff, even though it was highly illegal. But um, the city would even put in porta potties because it's just a bunch of stoners. And half the time, half the people in the park wouldn't even do the march because it'd be so high that the march would start and they wouldn't even realize it was starting, and then over. Everybody would come back, oh, there was a march. Anyways, so it was always peaceful and interesting and fun. And so then weed became legal that one year, and so we were all pretty happy about that. I mean, the weed didn't actually get to be legal for, it was another, I think, year and a half before it actually rolled out. and we have our dispensaries and things that we have now. And then so the first 420 after weed was legal, they did have they moved it from Dundas Square over to City Hall area because it was just getting so huge. So they got permits for the City Hall, Nathan Phillips Square area where the ice rinks. If you go on, if you ever watch anything on TV about Toronto, there's the Toronto sign in the ice rinks and stuff. So people would congregate there. And it was supposed to be illegal to smoke on city property, but people did anyways. And then there's a stage there as well for when there's protest marches and festivals and concerts and stuff. So there's a stage there. So they would do all their rallies and the comedy and all that from that stage. And then the following year, which would have been last year, weed was no 2 years ago when weed was actually legal, City Hall wouldn't give a permit for the march, so it was moved. So it moved to a park kind of in the West End here. So on 420, it was a kind of a crappy cold day, like it was cold. And I went out to that, and not a lot of people came. I think maybe a few hundred. And so people were just celebrating in the park. And then they had these bubbles, and so we were all blowing bubbles to try to beat a world record of blowing bubbles. Or something like that. It was fun, but it was really cold, so I only stayed a couple hours, and then last year there was another attempt to have something on 420, and they did it because, like I said, the year before it was a West End park. Then last year they did an East End park. It was really far. It's like really far for me, like an hour and a half on subway. And I actually, that day I had to work. I had a rush job, editing job to do. So I just stayed home and it was pouring rain and really cold. And what few pictures I saw from the march, it was, or the, wasn't a march, it was a celebration. It was just rained out, just puddles everywhere. Apparently it was really badly organized. There was no vendor tents. It was just a nightmare. So, and most of it was because of the torrential rains. Like it was one of those horrific rainy Aprils. So, anyways, now we're this year, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and there's a pandemic. So what are we gonna do? Nothing. Nothing we can do. It's just how it is. And so happy 420. And so today I'll probably go on Twitch around 1 o'clock and do some free tarot card readings for anyone who may want to do that. So make sure you follow me on Twitch TV. I'm Sephra666 on Twitch, and I mean, you can find me how I guess there are people with my name now, but I was the first to have my name, so yeah, now other people have my name. Anyways, you can find me on Twitch, and there's links on all so many of my YouTube channels. YouTube videos have the link to it. So yeah, so happy 420. And we'll see you later on. Come by for a tarot reading on Twitch. Bye.